through, so a drier day for many places. Still bright but chilly across the northern parts, so across Scotland. Further south, still relatively mild for the time being, but as we go through the weekend, we are going to see that Arctic air in the north plunging its way southwards, so temperatures for all dropping.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the nation. Because the truth matters, and so do you.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. In Scotland, drivers should proceed with care on the A9 southbound near Greenloaning due to animals on or near the road. Delays are expected westbound on the M4 between junction 37 at Pyle and junction 38 at Margam during the evening rush hour. Barnsley's M1 southbound entry slip at junction 37 remains closed after a vehicle left the carriageway, with normal conditions expected by midnight. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are disrupted between Lockerbie and Oxenholme Lake District. Similarly, cross-country services face delays between Dunbar and Berwick-upon-Tweed. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
You could win your entire Christmas on us this year, all magically delivered to you in time for the big day. There's cash, £30,000 in tax-free cash to make your new year go with a bang. There's also a further £10,000 to spend on all the gifts. We've also got Christmas lunch for you, with £1,000 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a festive GB News goodie bag, so there's something for everyone under the tree. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Good evening. Well, they can't blame October filmers anymore because now the Daily Telegraph have discovered that actually even Newsnight were doctoring Trump's speech on the 6th of January. It just gets worse and worse. I'm going to ask, when is enough enough? Now, Mark Weiner's given a really big GB News Migrant exclusive. Look at these pictures. They're walking down the streets. They've actually got the life jackets in their arms already, given out, funnily enough, by British charities. But I wonder, I feel sorry for the local French residents, but I wonder, is there any end to this? And our final segment today is a very depressing and worrying one. Because of the Human Rights Act, we are going back 50 years and prosecuting men that fought with special forces in Northern Ireland and subsequent conflicts. And there's now an exodus from special forces. Recruitment is absolutely at ground zero, whilst at the same time, the IRA were absolved of all responsibility. I'll be joined by a former SAS commander to discuss just how serious this situation is. But before that and much more, let's get the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you, Nigel. 7:01 here in the GB newsroom. Our top stories. It's emerged the BBC used spliced footage of a Donald Trump speech 2 years before it appeared in a Panorama documentary in 2024. The Telegraph's reporting it was used in an episode of Newsnight in 2022. The edit made it look like Mr Trump was encouraging his supporters to riot on January the 6th. It's claimed concerns were raised within the BBC at the time, but were ignored. Tim Davie, the Director General, and Deborah Turness, the head of BBC News, both resigned over the scandal on Sunday. And Mr Trump has given the BBC until tomorrow to apologise and publish a full retraction or face $1 billion legal action. Well, the White House says it's clear the BBC engaged in a pattern of defamation in order to try to interfere in the presidential election. A BBC spokesperson has said that the corporation holds itself to the highest editorial standards. It says the matter has been brought to our attention and we are looking into it. The Conservatives have accused Sir Keir Starmer of a cover-up after he concluded an investigation into briefings against cabinet ministers hours after it had begun. The Prime Minister has apologised to the Health Secretary Wes Streeting over claims he was plotting a challenge and says he has been assured any briefings earlier this week did not come from Downing Street. But Tory leader Kemi Badenoch says she's not buying it.
I think it is extraordinary that they believe there's no one briefing attacks on cabinet ministers when every single paper yesterday covered this story. So someone was talking, and journalists would not have run it if it hadn't come from Number 10. So this is a cover-up. They're trying to sweep this under the rug because they have allowed people to see just how much chaos and disunity there is in government.
A review of the care of 10-year-old Sarah Sharif, who was killed by her father and stepmother in 2023, has revealed council staff tried to check on her the day before she died, but went to the wrong address. The Child Safeguarding Practice Review looked at how organisations worked together in the run-up to her murder, as she was being homeschooled at her family home in Woking at the time. Surrey County Council has said it's deeply sorry. Finally, GB News can reveal people smugglers and migrants are operating with near impunity in northern France. Exclusive footage shows groups of men launching dinghies near Calais and wandering through coastal towns wearing life jackets, unchallenged by police. Residents say they feel unsafe, describing rising levels of violence and criminality as smuggling operations continue almost in plain sight along the Channel coast. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 8.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Good evening. It just gets worse. You see, the BBC basically blamed October Films, who were making a documentary, for the Dr. Trump clip. And yet, the Daily Telegraph today have revealed that in 2022, Newsnight, which, by the way, used to be one of the most trusted news sources in the country, now Newsnight in 22 played the same game.
To cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them.
Two completely different clips. And what the first clip was that Newsnight put out, the second part of that was given 54 minutes after the first part. It is just a disgrace. Here is the most recent comment that we have from the White House. It is now clear that the BBC engaged in a pattern of defamation against President Trump by intentionally and deceitfully editing his historic speech in order to try and interfere in the presidential election. President Trump will continue to hold accountable those who traffic in lies, deception and, only from him, fake news. Now, I think actually fake news was invented by Donald Trump in the first place, but it now seems to have its place. So what we're seeing, folks at home, is, and I said this to you a couple of days ago, this is institutional bias from the BBC. It isn't one outfit, it isn't one firm that have been brought on to make documentaries or anything else. This runs deep throughout the BBC. So let me ask you at home, when is enough enough? When is the time to really do something serious about the Charter, about the licence fee, Love to get your thoughts. Tweet #Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com. I'm joined in the studio by Sir Michael Ellis, former Attorney General, by Lord John Cryer, Labour peer, and, crucially, Camilla Tominey. Now, she is of this manor, but she's also of the Daily Telegraph podcast as well. So how did this all come about?
Basically, we'd obviously done the original scoop based on the dossier that was compiled by Michael Prescott, which in turn was based on a report that was compiled by David Grossman, who works for the BBC, about concerns about a lack of impartiality in the coverage of Trump, Gaza, trans stories, British history, and all the rest of it. We know that all landed with my colleague Gordon Rayner last week. At The Telegraph, I present the Daily Tea podcast. That's a daily politics show digesting the day's news. And somebody contacted us, a man called David Chaudoir, who was a graphic designer on Newsnight between 2022 and 2024. He said to us, there's something about this panorama footage that looks familiar to me. I remember there was a Newsnight episode back in the day when I was working on the show where the same sort of footage was used and it was actually called out on air by a Republican. My brilliant production team went back through the archives. We found the episode. It was June the 9th, 2022. Kirsty Walk is then presenting Newsnight. They put a package together. It's 11 months on from the Capitol Hill riots. They are discussing how the Congressional Committee might conclude the findings about Trump's behaviour. Did he incite it? Did he not? And the same sort of spliced footage appears. And the crucial lines that are married together that did occur, as you say, Nigel, almost an hour apart, are we will march on the Capitol and then fight like hell. It's a very similar theme. Crucially, and this is how it differs to Panorama, it is called out on air by the contributor who is asked to talk about the issue in general, Mick Mulvaney.
Who was Trump's chief of staff for the last 18 months of his presidency.
OK, but it's crucial to point this out. He was White House Chief of Staff, but by that point he had left Trump's administration because he disagreed with him about declaring the election to be false and indeed what happened on Capitol Hill that day. So this isn't a Trump supporter. This is Mick Mulvaney turning round to the presenter of Newsnight, Kirsty Walk, and said, hang on a minute, if we're going to have a debate about these issues, you can't use clips like that. He actually used the words, you've spliced the speech. I quote him verbatim. Your video actually spliced together the presentation. That line about, quotes, we fight like hell is actually later in the speech. So what we have here...
54 minutes later.
54 minutes later. So what we have here is, yes, a different edit to Panorama. Let's be generous to Newsnight. They did include the line about the president urging the supporters to join congressmen and women, etc., etc. But they did make it look as if seamlessly he had said, march on the Capitol and fight like hell.
Well, this is, I mean, for the Telegraph, you know, the odd thing is, I remember at the time watching it thinking this is all put together, but no one did anything. And a few years go by. So the Telegraph have done great work on this. But what happens now, Camilla?
Well, I think this debases a couple of myths. First of all, the suggestion that this was all orchestrated by a right-wing plot of bad actors, coordinated by Robbie Gibb.
Oh, no, it's all Robbie Gibb, surely.
It's all Robbie Gibb. So Robbie Gibb, the former Director of Communications under Theresa May, once described by Emily Maitlis, formerly of the BBC, as an active agent of the Conservative Party. That debases that myth, because this has got nothing to do with Michael Prescott's memo. In fact, they didn't spot it. We've spotted it separately. It's got nothing to do with Robbie Gibb. This is seeming to suggest that the editing of clips of Trump's speech on January the 6th, 2021, was done in a sort of consensus of wanting to make it appear like he incited the riots. This is suggesting that this kind of group...
the narrative,
it suggests that it's endemic. I mean, we cannot look into the minds of those who spliced the clips, OK? We don't even know who they are. But what we do know is that this suggestion that the Panorama editing was a mistake appears to have been debunked, because we've got two instances now of this happening.
And you know what? We'll find more.
And it was called out on air. So you've got a contributor actually saying live on the BBC there's a problem with this clip. Now, back to our whistleblower, David Chaudoir, who was a graphic designer, worked on Newsnight from 2022 to 2024, said that at an editorial meeting the next morning, and you'll be familiar with those, Nigel, you know, you have a dissection of what you did the night before or the day before, it's a post-mortem. He alleges that a producer said, goodness me, that was a bit embarrassing. Who put that clip together? Maybe we shouldn't have done that. And senior bods in the meeting brushed it aside, said there was nothing to see here and moved on.
Oh, dear. John Cryer of the BBC. We've grown up with the BBC.
Yeah.
We're similar age. It's been a very trusted source, a pillar, if you like, of our national life. This just gets worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, like you say, we both grew up with the BBC. In fact, when I was growing up, it was the only thing we watched. We didn't watch ITV. That was quite common in those days. And I think it still is trusted to a large extent, but not perhaps as much as it was. I believe in public sector, public service broadcasting. However, they can't carry on like this. I mean, this is, you know, the same story, two different sort of... I keep wanting to go back to the word faked, you know, because you used a lot.
Fake news.
Yeah, which is not as sort of a phrase I use. But before I came over here, I was just thinking about previous incidents. We had Glastonbury, where they didn't pull the feed on an absolutely outrageous anti-Semitic... I mean, you know, you listen to what they were saying, they're almost like fascist apologists, these people. We've also got, since we're on the subject of Newsnight, there have been a few things over the years which have bothered me about Newsnight. I'll give two examples. I can go into them in greater detail. Do you remember Anjem Chowdhury, who, you know, talking of clerical fascists, he used to appear, from what I remember, he used to appear on Newsnight fairly regularly. How many supporters did he have? A couple of hundred?
Yeah.
Any one of us could probably put together a meeting of 200 people if we wanted to.
So not representative?
No, exactly. And yet, the way that he was paraded as a voice of the Muslim community in Britain, you know, if I was a mainstream Muslim watching that, I'd be thinking, actually, they're sort of making us into a bit of a target. There was another example that springs to mind, and that's the case of Abu Nuzabaya, which is probably forgotten now. Do you remember the man who appeared on Newsnight? And he appeared on Newsnight to give a story that the two murderers of Lee Rigby, one of them had been approached by the Secret Services and asked to work for them. This man, Abu Nuzabaya, was paraded as if he had something. By the time he finished the interview, there were two, I think, Secret Service agents waiting for him. He was arrested, he did 3 years in prison. I have personal experience of him because he lived in my constituency, my former constituency, for a while, and I had a couple of confrontations, and I can tell you more about this, but which could have got really nasty. I mean, there was me by myself, and there was him and his gang of mates, which you would expect from people like that. Now, I would have thought any research from Newsnight, looking at this bloke who is setting out to undermine security...
So basically, John, you are making the case that the BBC has been pretty rotten for a long time.
I think it's had some very, very serious problems for a long time.
I think he's underclubbing there, isn't he, Michael?
Underclubbing. Look, the Telegraph have done great work.
No, they have, absolutely.
And they are really pulling their weight and beyond. So congratulations to Telegraph, because this needs exposure, Nigel. This is, frankly, grossly unacceptable and has been for years. Absolutely years. But the BBC are in utter denial. They're in this state of fantastical disbelief. They seem to be of the view that it's all a sinister right-wing coup attempt against them.
I mean, this narrative that Ed Davies is absurd. It's nonsense, isn't it?
I mean, I don't buy that.
It's not borne out by the evidence. So that's the first point.
Also, I think there's something rather pernicious in blaming good journalism for exposing bad journalism. At the end of the day, you know, I've been through my career and I've often encountered extremely lofty people at the BBC suggesting that they're a cut above the rest. We've actually seen them all come out of the woodwork this week and try and justify what is the unjustifiable.
There's no contrition at all.
From the Telegraph audience's point of view, and maybe this is shared by GB News, and of course, if GB News had spliced footage like this, we would not have heard the end of it.
Ofcom would have closed us down.
But my central point is actually Telegraph readers do not want the BBC to be destroyed. They just want it to be better.
Yes.
That's all we're asking for here.
I also grew up with the BBC and relying on it, especially for its
I think we're all the same in that regard,
But the fact... Well, I'm much younger, of course.
Of course.
You're 28, aren't you?
I'm only 28. But look, it's the groupthink, isn't it? That's where you see the groupthink, where there's basically London-centric, sort of liberal leftist mindset, proven by the fact that someone did an FOI once on the BBC and found that the newspaper that was most supplied at Broadcasting House was The Guardian.
By far.
By far. And I think, look, the reality of the matter is there are, frankly, numerous occasions where left-wing people have been put into positions of authority at the BBC. As soon as one person of a conservative orientation is in there, it's somehow unacceptable and outrageous.
The whole thing is ridiculous. But you know one thing, folks, whether you're watching at home or in the car listening to this, it is very much the advantage of GB News. Now, a BBC spokesman said, "The BBC holds itself to the highest editorial standards. This matter has been brought to our attention and we are now looking into it." I shouldn't laugh. But maybe, Camilla, one of the reasons GB News is doing so well, including, and you're enjoying coming on Sunday mornings and doing your bit, and the channel is growing and growing and growing, is that the BBC are so bad, they're making it easy for us.
Well, possibly so. And I shall continue to add some discerning journalism and grill politicians of all hues, reform included, Nigel Farage,
gosh, there we are.
on my show on Sunday morning at 9:30.
Well, given that warning from Camilla, we best take a break. I'll see you in a moment.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So when is enough for the BBC? Andy gives me some thoughts. He says, I think we can all agree that we've truly had enough, Nigel. Surely it's time to change the funding model. Do you know, I couldn't agree more. And actually, I've got more. Alexandra says, Nigel, do you think the BBC will apologise in time for the deadline tomorrow? I don't think they've got any choice. I mean, look, come on, you know. Trump suing for $1 billion is, I mean, you know, come on, take that with a pinch of salt. But he is very, very angry. You know, I saw him last Friday night when I was in Florida. He's very angry, and you know what? He has a right to be angry. What he deserves is a fulsome apology, and I think that apology after what Camilla has revealed today from Newsnight becomes even bigger. Right, Mark White, our Home Affairs editor, who's done such an amazing job for us over a long time, has been across to Gravelines between Calais and Dunkirk. And there is some really quite remarkable footage. Let's begin with young men walking down the streets. Now, they're actually carrying the life jackets with them. These have been given to them by charities, some of them British charities. I won't name them because I'm not keen to be sued, but frankly, they are aiding and abetting the cross-channel trade. And we go on from that, and we see more scenes from France. Can you imagine living in Gravelines? I mean, here they are all... By the way, any women there? Any children there? Any disabled there? Any pensioners there? No, it's the same game. It's young males, and I keep saying this, and people hate me sometimes for it, young males of fighting age, there they are leaving the River Our, and when they get to 12 miles from Dover, they will throw their passports and their mobile phones into the sea, because that's what they do. But have a think for a moment about the residents living there. Look at these scenes. These are basically riots, open, running riots in the street that are going on between these young men and the French police. Goodness knows, can you imagine living in Gravelines or any of these villages? And then, of course, we get the classic TikTok stuff. The classic TikTok stuff, which shows us the migrant's journey. Let's see it now. He's in a tent in northern France. Now he's in a 4-star hotel. He's watching telly. He's getting 3 square meals a day, and that is being used on TikTok to advertise, to say, do you know what? It's worth the money. Come to the UK. You can live the life of Riley. John Cryer, smash the gangs can never work because the pull factors here are just too big.
Well, I mean, we've got to move away from the way it's been working for the past few years, which is using hotels. That is actually coming down. I mean, it's not, earth-shattering, but in the last financial year, about £2 billion was spent on the migrant hotels. The year before, it was £3 billion.
But John, I'm going to say, so what?
Like
Even if they come out of hotels and they're put in houses of multiple occupancy...
Yeah, well, they've got the immigration ministers looking at alternative sites. I think ex-military, they're looking at ex-army sites, I think.
Yeah, but the problem...
Which is more sensible. But what we have to do...
John, it may save money.
Yeah.
But the problem here, and look, we've got to be frank about this, is lots of young men with nothing to do, wandering through towns and villages and streets and waiting around outside schools. That's the issue.
Yeah, it is the issue. The other issue is processing these cases more quickly. I mean, when I became an MP in 2010 for Leighton and Wanstead, I did immigration casework was just about my biggest caseload. And at that point, if I wrote to the Home Office, I could get a reply within 2 weeks. By the time I stood down last year and went down the corridor, it'd gone up to about 3 months. I mean, it's sort of... We have to get these cases through as quickly as possible.
Now, John, I understand what you're saying, but isn't the problem, Michael, even if we process the claims more quickly, those that don't qualify don't get sent back if they say they come from Eritrea or they come from Afghanistan?
That is one of the many problems. Legal issues have been the bane in all the governments that have tried to deal with this in the last 20 years. But, in France... One thing Mark White's report indicated just how awful it must be for the communities who live there.
And by the way, brilliant reporting.
Yeah, great reporting. I mean, Mark White really has hit the nail on the head there. The reality is, I bet you one thing, Nigel, there aren't any French politicians living and having to experience that in that area.
I'm sure.
The French citizens that are having to deal with that, as Mark's report has indicated, are having to put up with it. And, by the way, France has been extremely unhelpful, in my view, on dealing with the small boats crisis as far as the UK is concerned. They could have done a lot more, a lot sooner. They didn't seem motivated to do that at all, and if anything, helped put pressure on the problem. So I think Macron is in trouble. He's in trouble in his own country, in his own political system. There are some who are starting to talk, Nigel, about the end of the Fifth Republic of France, because they can't seem to get their act together.
Well, they can't. I mean, Parliament can't hold, Prime Ministers can't hold.
They can't hold a government, they can't hold a Prime Minister, and this has been a problem now for some years. The Fifth French Republic has been going since 1958. There are increasingly some French experts who are saying that there'll have to be a Sixth Republic in due course. It could well happen. Meanwhile, this crisis has been defeating Western European politicians, because the essence of the matter is, Nigel, as you know, you need to grab the bull by the horns and actually do some very difficult things. You need to take on the legal establishment that is causing a lot of the blockage to what needs to happen. And because individuals will say, well, it's dangerous to send me back to country X because country X has no human rights, then I'm entitled to stay in this country.
And yet the Germans are now flying back plane loads to Afghanistan every week. Yeah. So what's wrong with us?
Well, we haven't got the gumption to do it. There's no political gumption to do that sort of thing, and we haven't got the tools to sort the legal problems out.
I mean, John, you know, Starmer came in, smashed the gangs. It all sounded great. It was never going to work. It's rather like smash the drug gangs. It doesn't blooming work. But we've given the French... I mean, by the way, we've
given them hundreds of millions of pounds.
800 million.
Yeah, exactly.
For what?
I mean, one thing I'd ask you, I'm not questioning Mark's reporting, but are we sure this is part of a wider pattern? Do you know what I mean? Or is this just one evening? Or
No, I think in Gravelines...
It's going on all the time.
Gravelines particularly, it's happening all the time. And we know, and I've studied this for many, many years, we know exactly which beaches they're going to take off from. We know exactly which beaches. And the problem is, the more money that gets involved, the more dangerous the gangs become, the more frightened the French police are of dealing with them.
And there's gang warfare, by the way.
And they're killing each other.
Killing each other, yeah.
Literally killing each other. But I still contend, John, that the fault isn't actually the French.
Yeah.
Despite all the money, the fault is us.
Yeah.
Because you get a 4-star hotel, and even if you're fast tracked through the system, as you mentioned earlier, if you pass, you pass. But if you fail, you get to stay here anyway.
But I mean, the speed of the system is crucial, and the idea that we don't send people back, I mean, is illusory. There are flights taking off every week back to countries of
those that have
origin.
crossed the channel. The ones we're sending... Keir Starmer makes this big claim.
Yeah.
We are sending people back, but they're the visa overstayers. We're not sending back those that cross the channel with no identity and claim they're from Eritrea or...
Well, look, I mean, what I can't understand is the behaviour of the French police. I mean, you say the French police they hadn't tackled the gangs. I had gang warfare in my constituency at times. I'm not trying to exaggerate.
What, literally?
But well, you know, you get the postcode gangs.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they cross into each other's territories, you know, you get stabbings, you get shootings.
This is all drugs
and
stuff.
It's related to drugs. The police didn't hesitate about tackling it. I mean, I knew every borough commander in my time as a member of Parliament, and they didn't hesitate. I mean, I can think of examples where I was personally probably a couple of minutes away from 3 stabbings, one of which resulted in a fatality. And the police would always be down here. Now, since we're paying them, you said 800 million quid we've paid to the French government.
Since 2014.
Why aren't they tackling it on the beaches? I want to just add one other thing. I mean, I said earlier on, I had a very mixed constituency. If you name a community, I would have had it. And I dealt with a lot of migrants, but I dealt with a lot of asylum seekers. Now, the vast majority of asylum seekers I dealt with were genuine, I would very often look into their cases, I would work with the Home Office. There was an element in there of sort of the criminal elements, and part of the reason for that is that, of course, when you get a war, you get civilians fleeing the war, but what you also get is sometimes people who've done some very, very bad things want to get out as well. Because they want to evade justice.
And I'm afraid that's right, and I think actually what's happened here, John, is our natural sympathy for genuine refugees is weakening because of what's happening on the Channel. Big debate as ever. In a moment, let's talk about Scotland. Is it possible that 50 towns and cities in Britain have suffered from grooming gang sexual abuse and that Scotland hasn't? I don't think so. We debate that in just a moment.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Storm Claudia will continue to affect parts of Iberia as we go through tomorrow. It's continuing to bring heavy rain, thunder, large hail across parts of the Canary Islands, Portugal and particularly western parts of Spain, but it is pushing its way further east. Meanwhile, actually across many central and eastern parts of the Mediterranean, staying largely fine, some decent sunshine on offer and temperatures about what you'd expect for the time of year. Staying pretty unsettled for many across Spain as we go into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening. This is your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Storm Claudia is heading our way. It's going to bring some very wet and windy weather across parts of central and southern England and Wales. Now, the low itself was named by the Spanish Met Service because it's already brought heavy thundery rain across parts of Spain and Portugal. But now we're going to see some of that wet weather pushing in from the south. Starting off overnight, a band of rain will push in across many parts of England and Wales, but more wet weather to come as we go through tomorrow. Actually, across much of Scotland, there will be some clear skies, a few showers which could be wintry, but many places dry through the night and cold, temperatures dropping several degrees below freezing here because of Arctic air and those clear skies. A much milder start to the day across southern parts, but it is going to be cloudy for most and there will be some of that heavy rain around and blustery winds too. Southern counties largely dry to start off with, but cloudy across more central parts and plenty of rain here through the morning, and across Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England, cloudy with a few outbreaks of rain at times too. The brighter story though across Scotland, and it's going to stay largely bright here through much of the day, still just a few perhaps wintry showers pushing through at times. But the bigger talking point is the very wet and windy weather that we get from Storm Claudia. Gusts of around 70 miles per hour in some exposed spots towards the northwest of England and Wales, and rainfall totals perhaps up to 100 to 150 millimetres over the high ground of southeast Wales as well. So a really unsettled day. As we go into Saturday, some of that rain will be lingering overnight, but it's going to break up and eventually ease and clear through. So a drier day for many places. Still bright but chilly across the northern parts, so across Scotland. Further south, still relatively mild for the time being, but as we go through the weekend, we are going to see that Arctic air in the north plunging its way southwards, so temperatures for all dropping.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
As GB News' Charlie Peters showed, there are 50 towns and cities in England where grooming gangs of a racial dimension abuse girls on an industrial scale. Last week we talked about London, where Mayor Khan has been in denial. Now the game moves on, I'm afraid, to Scotland, where a very serious accusation has been made by a woman who says she was sexually abused as a teenager by Pakistani grooming gangs in Scotland. Here's what the Scottish First Minister, John Swinney, had to say on the subject.
I have received the letter from Taylor and I want to express here to Parliament my admiration for her courage to speak out on such an important and very difficult subject, and I'm deeply saddened to hear of any cases of sexual abuse, and as Parliament knows, I have taken significant action during my term in office as a Minister to ensure this issue has been addressed.
Well, that can mean whatever you want it to mean. But John Cryer, John, your mother was just about the first significant public figure to blow the whistle on this over 20 years ago.
No, the first. I'll tell you how it started. The very beginning of it was my mum was an MP for Keighley, where I grew up.
Yeah.
And she walked into her advice surgery 2003, and there were, I think it was 7 women sat there who were all mothers of girls who'd been through all this. Turned out I'd been at school with 2 of the women, 2 of the mums. And when she told me this, and she said, well, these women are saying that, you know, the police don't want to know, the council don't want to know. We both said, can't be right. And the more she looked into it, the worse it got. They really didn't want to know. The police said we can't do anything. The council really just refused, you know, to acknowledge it. So eventually it got into the public domain, and she was accused of being a racist, a little Englander.
I remember, yeah.
She was told that she was doing the BNP's job for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, the people who are doing the BNP's job for them are the people who are covering up for it, who are turning a blind eye to this sort of thing. And the first, it's often, because we've had a lot of coverage just recently, as you know, it's often said the first trial involved Rochdale grooming gang. I'm sure, I haven't been able to track this down, but I'm sure the first prosecutions involved 6 men from Keighley, where I grew up.
Right.
But that was very... you know, sometimes you get something that later on becomes part of the pattern.
But, John, here we are 20 years on.
Yeah.
And we've got First Ministers and Mayors of London saying it's all OK, we've dealt with it all. I mean, listen, your mother was an absolute heroine in this, but as you say, it took huge abuse, daring to speak the truth.
She was castigated at the time, your mother.
She was?
And she was an absolute heroine.
Yeah.
And she remains a heroine. So, look, and she's someone, actually, I think people can look up to, if I may say so, as a former Labour MP.
Having moral courage.
Having moral courage, forget party politics.
Yeah.
She was great. And look, what is Scotland doing here? What is the Scottish Government doing here? The reality is you've got a situation where the victim who has written to the Scottish First Minister is calling for action, and nothing appears to be happening. Meanwhile, 2 months ago, the Scottish Government were focused on sort of anti-Israel policies, as you can imagine. So something needs to be done about this. We can't, it's not realistic to imagine that there's hundreds of issues, hundreds of examples in England, but nothing's happened in Scotland
Or London. Or London. No,
it's
it's nonsense. Look, I'm afraid everything your mother revealed in 2003 still goes on. We're going to change gear here. Regular viewers of this show know that I just love a bit of history. 617 Squadron, what do you think of? That, of course, is the theme music for the film The Dambusters, the famous Dams raids that took place. But 617 Squadron went on. After that, they lost Guy Gibson, their leader. A man called Leonard Cheshire took over 617 Squadron, and there are Cheshire homes still all over this country. Fun enough, his wife was called Sue Ryder, and you'll see Sue Ryder shops in high streets still all over this country. But it wasn't all plain sailing, because one of their big missions was to take out some of the great German naval ships. Let's have a look at this map. Now, this was a raid to go and try and take out the Tirpitz, right up in northern Norway. And one of these planes didn't quite make it. It crash-landed back, and everyone survived. Now the wreckage of the plane is still there. The question is it going to go for scrap, or should we try and reclaim it and try and rebuild it? I'm joined down the line by Roger McKee, son of the Dambusters pilot on that particular evening. Roger, you're here because they all survived. Lovely to have you on the programme. Is it feasible to get this wreck back to Britain and to attempt to rebuild it?
Well, Nigel, lovely to speak to you. Could I just correct one small error, if I may?
Sure.
Not that you're ever wrong with anything, of course. My father wasn't the pilot; he was a navigator, and he joined 617 Squadron after the damage raid, and it was obviously one of his missions was to bomb the Tirpitz, which he did obviously, and then got damaged over the Tirpitz and subsequently crashed. And I took him to visit the wreckage in 2022. No, I lie. 2002, sorry, when he was 80.
Yeah.
And the wreckage is still there. All the engines were moved some time ago, but the framework, the fuselage, and the wings are still evident. It's a skeleton, obviously. I think there are people standing by, frankly, who would bring the wreckage back to the UK, but that are having some issues with the Swedish Land Registry.
All right. Well, look, let me make you a promise, Roger. If you need any help with this, you need to raise money, you need the right people, you get in touch with me and I'll help you. And I absolutely mean that, and I promise that, and thank you for coming on the programme.
Well, I will, Nigel, because I think your help and influence would be greatly appreciated.
I'm with you. 617. Wow.
Talking of heroes, I mean, those who fought in World War II, and the Lancaster bomber pilots, navigators, and crew were heroes too. And Barnes Wallis, of course, who invented the bouncing bomb that was the only aeroplane at the time that could carry the bouncing bomb, was the Lancaster bomber.
Towards the end of the war, the bunker buster. We saw it used in Iran. I mean, amazing, wasn't it? What people did there.
It's extraordinary. I mean, by the way, just make it clear, we should bring it back. You can bring. No matter how badly wrecked it is, you can resuscitate these aircraft. They're like old cars. I know a lot about old cars. I mean, I've seen cars with trees growing through them and they get rescued and rebuilt. But I've got a bit of an RAF connection because I was the MP for Hornchurch for 8 years.
Yeah.
And RAF Hornchurch, which no longer exists, was part of the Ring of Steel in 1940. And I had a lot to do with the RAF Hornchurch Association when I was the MP. And one man I met during that time was called Bill Ash. He was a former fighter pilot. And if you've ever seen The Great Escape, the character of Hilts was based on Bill.
Well, there you are. And sometimes politics is a privilege. And I'll say this, Jim, if you're watching, you're 100, you're a constituent of mine, you did your 30 missions as Tail End Charlie on Lancasters. In a moment, we'll talk about special forces and the real problems some legislation coming next week can bring to what is absolutely the best of Britain.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
It's a story we've covered before, but it's a story that really matters. And it matters because next Tuesday, going before the House of Commons, is the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill. And here's the problem. Anything the IRA did 50 years ago, 30 years ago, that's all gone. And yet, British servicemen are still liable to prosecution. And by the way, it's not just Northern Ireland, it goes on beyond that. And this is now presenting a very particular problem for Britain's special forces. Why does that matter? Well, I tell you what, when it comes to our relationship with America, the one thing they really value is cooperation with our special forces. I am told there is an exodus of good people leaving the special forces. I am told recruitment is a disaster. And I'm joined for the second time in the studio by Jamie Lowther-Pinkerton, former SAS 22 Squadron Commander. We're now reaching the end game of this, aren't we?
Well, I hope we are. I have to say, I mean, a bit of sort of background. I mean, I became involved in this a year ago when it was pointed out to me, and I'm ashamed that I didn't know about it before, that over 100 SAS men are lined up for investigation. And that's the right word for it. It's couched under sort of reconciliation and that sort of thing. And, you know, your responsibilities as an officer do not stop when you leave the armed forces. If this sort of thing is happening at a time when actually I was sending them out to Northern Ireland, then you have to become involved. And it's not so much the fact that it'll go to prosecution and there will be extra evidence, because there is none. It's the wearing effect of the process. You know, some of my soldiers have been investigated and re-investigated, screamed at by lawyers in Northern Ireland. One had, on his deathbed, had lawyers come from Northern Ireland to give him a hard time on his deathbed.
Yeah, and I hear they're knocking on people's doors at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely.
Behaving in the most incredible way.
Yeah.
Putting the fear of God into people who, in some cases, are now quite elderly.
Yeah. And serving soldiers. I mean, this has happened recently with warrant officers, you know, who are the absolute core of any regiment, particularly the SAS, who are the repository of all the skills and knowledge, which we're going to lose if this goes on. I'm not going to be catastrophic and say that it's on the edge of it now, but it's getting there. And there's a sort of tinderbox effect here, which is awful for the individuals, but what it does for the country and its ability to defend itself is potentially catastrophic.
And our relationship with America. I touched on that in the introduction. They really regard, the Americans really regard the relationship with SAS, SBS as being right at the heart of that military alliance. In fact, the truth is, the Americans think, really, it's all we've got left to offer.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, it's the one thing that we have parity with them. There are 8 Tier 1 Special Forces squadrons on each side of the Atlantic. And actually, always they've worked, I mean, really spliced together, much more so, I think, than the public know. And they're very worried because half of the world's, or the West, sorry, the free world's Tier 1 Special Forces capability is being eroded.
What's your message to the Prime Minister, to members of Parliament next Tuesday as this legislation comes before the House of Commons?
Well, I was really pleased that the General's excellent letter...
9 of them.
9 of them.
Wrote to the Times.
36 stars on their shoulders.
Yeah,
wrote to the Times.
For viewers and listeners that don't know, there were 9 former retired generals who wrote to the Times basically citing that the Human Rights Act was becoming the problem.
Absolutely. And on the Human Rights Act, you know, I'm a very non-political person. SAS soldiers tend to be, because we always believe vehemently in our country.
Yep.
And we put ourselves in harm's way because we believe that that's what we should be doing. Now, what we've always imagined in the past is we had somebody looking at our back, watching our back. The really worrying thing now is this thing about hesitancy. Because you go into action, you're sent into action, your commanders, right the way down to the people who are going to be on the front, the tip of the spear, as it were. They're going to be facing an enemy over there, but they're going to have a lawyer scribbling notes in a slit trench behind them.
This just can't go on, can it?
It can't. It's unsustainable.
I think the answer, folks, is we just draw a line under all of this. We've done it for the IRA. Why don't we do it for the British Army?
Well, exactly. And you know, I go back to this political point. ECHR, Human Rights Act, not my business, above my pay grade. But in terms of using the Human Rights Act for military operations, it just doesn't fit.
It doesn't work.
You know, the laws of armed conflict, Geneva Convention, served us well for a century.
Yeah.
And actually, their strictures are no less tight than the Human Rights Act. But they allow for military operations.
The Human Rights Act is open to judge individual interpretation, whereas the Geneva Convention was quite clear, I think, on what you could and couldn't do.
Well, it's designed for purpose.
Yeah. Jamie, we will have you back again in the studio. Thank you, A, for what you've done for the country, but B, for speaking out.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yep.
Jacob, it's quite depressing, isn't it?
It's very depressing.
It really is.
And it's all Hilary Benn's fault.
Our best people.
Our best people, brave people who are willing to put their lives on the line. That's something I've never been asked to do. They are the people who keep our country safe when nobody else is around, and we should be backing them. Now, that doesn't mean that if atrocities happen, our forces should have carte blanche. They should be investigated and subject to court-martial.
Rules, and we know that.
Absolutely.
You know.
But there's current imbalance in Northern Ireland of people who served 50 years ago being hauled out of bed when IRA terrorists who we have evidence against are getting away scot-free, and we were about to pay compensation to Gerry Adams, for heaven's sake.
Can you believe it?
It is just utterly unbalanced and unfair, and it is, I'm afraid, Hilary Benn's fault. I don't think anyone else is pushing for the repeal of the previous act, other possibly than Harmer.
Quite extraordinary. Jacob, in a few words, what have you got coming up?
Well, I'm back to the BBC, because there's this extraordinary story about another earlier fiddle to do up Trump. They don't like Trump. And what's so interesting is this was done internally by the BBC.
Yeah.
So they tried to blame the production company. Not our fault, terrible accident, not a bit of it. It's the BBC's bias is to the fore once again.
And it's becoming clearer and clearer. Well, Jacob, as you say, the BBC don't like Trump. They've never been terribly keen on me, I've got to tell you. But hey, here we are. We're GB News, and we are genuinely a home of free speech. We allow people, whatever their point of view, to have their say, and I'm proud to be a part of it. Jacob, in a moment. First, though, let's have a look at the all-important and deteriorating weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening. This is your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Storm Claudia is heading our way. It's going to bring some very wet and windy weather across parts of central and southern England and Wales. Now, the low itself was named by the Spanish Met Service because it's already brought heavy thundery rain across parts of Spain and Portugal. But now we're going to see some of that wet weather pushing in from the south. Starting off overnight, a band of rain will push in across many parts of England and Wales, but more wet weather to come as we go through tomorrow. Actually, across much of Scotland, there will be some clear skies, a few showers which could be wintry, but many places dry through the night and cold, temperatures dropping several degrees below freezing here because of Arctic air and those clear skies. A much milder start to the day across the southern parts, but it is going to be cloudy for most, and there will be some of that heavy rain around and blustery winds too. Southern counties largely dry to start off with, but cloudy across more central parts, and plenty of rain here through the morning, and across Northern Ireland and parts of northern England, cloudy with a few outbreaks of rain at times too. The brighter story though across Scotland, and it's going to stay largely bright here through much of the day, still just a few perhaps wintry showers pushing through at times. But the bigger talking point is the very wet and windy weather that we get from Storm Claudia. Gusts of around 70 miles per hour in some exposed spots towards the northwest of England and Wales, and rainfall totals perhaps up to 100 to 150 millimetres over the high ground of southeast Wales as well. So a really unsettled day. As we go into Saturday, some of that rain will be lingering overnight, but it's going to break up and eventually ease and clear through. So a drier day for many places. Still bright but chilly across the northern parts, so across Scotland. Further south, still relatively mild for the time being, but as we go through the weekend, we are going to see that Arctic air in the north plunging its way southwards, so temperatures for all dropping.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We could be delivering the perfect